Hey everyone, today I'm breaking down my tournament run with Tera Box, and I'll show you two key matchups, one where the deck absolutely shined and I performed well with it, and one where I take a very tough loss due to my own mistakes, and I'll break down exactly what I did wrong as well, so that way then you don't make the same mistake I do. Now, and as for the list that I've been running, here's the list that it is. The game plan is super simple as well. It revolves around taking multiple prizes with Wellspring, then finishing off a 2-prizer usually with one of your other attackers for game. And as for the core cards, there's 3 big ones that I want to talk about, which is Wellspring Ogerpon. It has 2 relevant attacks, Sob to retreat lock a Pokemon, but most of the time you're using Torrential Pump to knock out 2 Pokemon at once, and that's going to be the general of your game plan. The second most important card is your Noctowl, which can easily find you a combination of 2 different trainer cards, and as you see with our deck, we're running primarily a bunch of trainer cards, so that way then we can easily get these attacks going as fast as possible. Along with that, our third most important card is our ace spec, the Sparkling Crystal. This is huge in the deck. If you have it on a Wellspring or on a Pikachu, it makes their attack that you want to use only cost 2 energy, and when you have to either discard in the case of Pikachu or shuffle back in the case of Wellspring for their effect, you only shuffle back exactly the amount of energy that you have. Even though it says 3, you only shuffle in the 2 that you have, making it a lot cheaper and more efficient to be able to use their attacks. So 1 Crispin plus Sparkling Crystal guarantees the attack for you, and you can just keep chaining that together. Now, as for techs, as you can see, I'm running 1 copy of Judge instead of Terapagos, and I wanted to try not running Terapagos because most of the matches that it came up, I could usually use one of our other Pokemon to be able to still put up a fight and still win the game, so I didn't feel like it was necessary as much. Now, and as for why I chose Judge, I wanted a draw supporter that wasn't research, so I went with Judge since it guarantees us 4 cards while also still disrupting our opponent's hand as well. And before we get into the games, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. I post new videos every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. And with that being said, we'll get on to game number 1. Alright, so the game that I'm going to show you first is the Raging Bolt matchup. So here we get to go first, and I will say if you've never played Tera Box before, going first is what you always want to do. It allows you to be able to set up your owls, so that way then you can get a guarantee swing with a Torrential Pump, and it stops your opponent from having a opportunity of getting into their stage 2s or stage 1s before you can actually get a 2-prize knockout. So you definitely want to go first. As for our hand, it's not looking that great. So we weren't able to get any owls. We got down an iron bundle, which could help later on. And then we got 2 Tera Pokemon, our Wellspring and our Teal Mask. So our Teal Mask is at least good. It is something that is a decent attacker in this matchup. It just depends on what our opponent does. They Iono us here, so let's hope for a better hand. And this hand is actually incredibly good. We're really gonna be able to do quite a bit with this hand, and there's quite a bit of thinking that I had to do during this play too. So here, we don't want to bench the Fez too early because they can easily just pull it up with a boss's orders and be able to KO it with a Raging Bolt. We want to make them work a little bit more. So the key attacker in this matchup is the Pikachu EX. If you're playing one of the other Tera Box variants that's running Terapagos, or you take out the Judge and run Terapagos instead, then Terapagos is actually a huge win condition in this matchup for us as well, because they can't really do anything if we just Crown Opal, because they're running nothing but basics other than Noctowls. So here we are just setting up our Pikachu since they already have a Raging Bolt in the back line. That way then if they do ever bring up the Raging Bolt and they get a knockout on our Wellspring, then we get to get a reverse knockout with the Pikachu onto their Raging Bolt. Alright, so here we actually top deck the Turo, which is really good. So there's multiple uses for Turo in this deck. The main go-to use is going to be to reset a Noctowl, so that way then you can get multiple uses out of a single copy. But there are times where like you need to get rid of a problematic Pokemon on your bench, or your active gets like retreat locked. So there's a couple of different things. And with this hand, we know that we wanted to Ultra Ball, but it's really a tough decision on what we should have gotten rid of. And even now, if I were to make that choice again, it's so difficult. I could have just gotten rid of the Fez and then kept the Night Stretcher and got rid of the Super Rod like we did, or I could have just kept the Super Rod so we could use that for later, because we know that Pikachu is very important here. So there's a couple different things that we could have done. Here we are just doing the Turo play, that way then we can get a extra use out of our Noctowl, and then we're just going to Saw Block one more turn. We're just trying to make sure that we have everything set up. We don't want to give them a free Pokemon for them to just knock out. So even though they are powering up this Teal mask in the active, and they will be able to swing with it, they're not going to be able to do enough damage to one-shot our Wellspring, which means that we can just save it for when we really need to, and be able to power it up when we really have to as well. A cool thing in this deck is there's actually a really cool play that you can do to get around stuff too. Here they do have their A-Spec, so they had to use it, and it does get around our little retreat lock, so now they have the Crispin as well, so they are able to power up this Raging Bolt. And now there's quite a few things that we can actually do. So here they're just knocking out our Hoothoot, so that way then we can't Noctowl, which means... So here we are just going to go into the Pikachu. It's going to be able to knock out this Raging Bolt. We top deck a Psychic, and here we are just going to use the Fez. We find our Sparkling Crystal, and I do make kind of a big mistake here. So the big mistake that I make is I'm going to end up attaching the Sparkling Crystal to our Pikachu. And I could have just Crispined and then attached the Sparkling Crystal to like the Wellspring. And the reason why this is a mistake is solely because we just last turn got rid of our Super Rod and our Night Stretcher, and we only run one copy of each of those. So we don't have access of getting the energy that we need, that metal and the lightning, back from our discard. So that's a huge problem for us, which means that we just use the Sparkling Crystal as kind of a one and done ordeal, when we could have gotten more usage out of it by putting it on the Wellspring for later on, in case we need the Wellspring to be able to attack. So if you're in this situation, don't make the same mistake that I do. So here they are just throwing up their Ogerpon. They are using a Ultra Ball. They're probably going to find another Raging Bolt. That way then they can get access to their main attacker. Instead, they find a Hoothoot. They get that down. And they're just going to do 150, which does pop our Pikachu EX's ability. So now it can be KO'd in one hit. But we are locked on to what our opponent is needing. So the play here is we're going to get Boss's Order, and then we're also probably just going to grab a Nest Ball for next turn if we need to. And the whole play is that we're actually going to power up this Wellspring, because we have an energy switch in hand and we have the Earthen Vessel. So we just have to make sure that we had enough grass in deck to be able to get the extra energy down to be able to do everything that we need. We already had an energy on the Teal mask, but I just want to make sure that it always has an energy in case we need to use that other energy switch later on. So here we are just going to manual attach. We did use the Nest Ball to get down the Latias, so that way then we have free retreat on the Pikachu. So now we put up the Wellspring, we put up their Noctowl that has 100 HP, we get to do the energy switch, and we get to knock out the Hoothoot and the Noctowl all in one go, putting us down to only needing 2 more prizes, which means that their Ursaluna is online to be able to knock out our Wellspring. But I did think ahead for that. That's why we have a extra Nest Ball in our hand, because we could actually get down the Clefairy, and we can attach the Psychic, we can use a Crispin, and then we also have the Mew EX in our hand to be able to put on bench. And if they put anything else on bench as well, we can actually one-shot their Ursaluna and be able to get game that way. So here they just threw up their baby Raging Bolt instead, so they can actually take a knockout on the Pikachu with that, and then force us to have to get rid of a one prizer if we need to. And that is going to be a little bit more difficult than what we want. And we also have no more Hoothoots down on the field, so it's going to be hard for us to be able to deal with this Raging Bolt as well, because we'd have to top deck into our final energy switch to be able to do our main attack. Here though, we do top deck into an Ursaluna, so we don't want to play it just yet and give them a avenue of being able to get around stuff. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use this Iron Bundle. I want to see what they're going to give me instead, because there is a couple plays that I could do. So they actually just give us the Ursaluna now, and they don't have a Latias down, so that's actually stuck in the active. So I do a little bit of thinking. I could Sob here, which softens it up, and then next turn we can actually use the Nest Ball, get down the Clefairy, and we also have the Mew that we can throw down and the Ursaluna, so we have multiple ways of being able to do what we need in order to win the game. And the main win condition that I was thinking of at this time is actually just using Ursaluna plus Crispin, and that would actually be enough if they took out a knockout on our Wellspring. Here they did just Turo up the Ursaluna, so now it doesn't have the damage on it, and they're able to put the baby Raging Bolt back into the active. And they will most likely be able to get a knockout this turn if they choose to do so. Here they also have the Counter Catcher, and they could do a play of like trying to lock us if they wanted to by like putting up the Noctowl and then doing that, but they actually decide not to. So here we got a couple different things that we could do, and I kind of want to set up game as like something that they just can't deal with. So the big thing that we could do is we could put down the Ursaluna. We need to knock out this baby Raging Bolt if we are going to put down an owl, a Hoothoot. So we're going to Ultra Ball away some things. We could get the Clefairy. I just wanted to check and make sure that it was still in my deck, see what energy is still in my deck, make sure that there was 2 different types of energy so we have access to that. But here we're just going to grab a Hoothoot. It doesn't matter which one I grab, but I am going to grab one of them. That is going to get that down, and then we're actually going to Crispin here, getting the water and the grass. The grass we are going to throw down onto our Ogerpon. That way then our Ogerpon can actually clear the baby Raging Bolt. We are going to Nest Ball and then attach our Psychic to our Clefairy and then throw down the rest of the Pokemon in our hand. This sets up a avenue of like 4 different ways to be able to knock out our opponent's Raging Bolt or Ursaluna, depending on whichever one they decide to attack with. So we make sure that we have game on the following turn. So now they have to decide what are they going to get rid of and how are they going to survive. So here they use the Counter Catcher and they're going to go after the Clefairy because they're going to use Ursaluna to be able to do so, and it's 260 damage, but that's completely fine with us. We can still get through this because we have the boss in our hand, and we still have the Noctowl to be able to find the boss if need be. Here they played out their jamming tower so they can actually get rid of their Noctowl, so it's not an easy target for us to just like gust up and be able to knock out. But that's completely fine. They still have multiple Pokemon that have 240 or less HP, and that's all we need with this boss. And again, that Noctowl in our hand kind of seals the deal anyway, just to make sure. So here they are just going to Blood Moon. They take out the Clefairy, and we're just going to throw up our Ursaluna, and then we will be able to just use the boss. We're going to get up the Mew. Didn't matter which one we got up, and then we just get the knockout for game. So that was game 1. Now we're on to game 2, and this one is the last round, our 5th round, and it's going to be against the Grimmsnarl. So this was a very good game, and it was a lot closer than what I initially thought it was going to be like. I don't have that much practice against Grimmsnarl with the Tera Box deck. It is one of those decks that like I really don't like playing against with Tera Box because most of the lists run Shaman, and Shaman is a very big problem for Tera Box. It's kind of like the go-to counter because it just stops our Wellspring from being able to take early double prize knockouts. And luckily our opponent in this match wasn't running Shaman, so we got real lucky with that. So as for what's happening right now, we are just going to use this Ultra Ball. I really didn't like having to give up the Night Stretcher plus the boss there, but we really needed this Owl because we need to be able to get our engine going and be able to start doing stuff. So here we do get the Noctowl, we are able to play it down, and we're just going to get a Research and a Air Balloon. Or we could actually just get Research and Nest Ball instead. I was thinking about the Air Balloon because I could just put it on the Noctowl, guaranteeing that it has free retreat so they can't just like counter catcher it up. But we do get our Wellspring down, and then we did the Research, so that way then we can see 7 new cards. We get another Owl down, so they can't just target down the one that we still have on the field. And we just pass. There's no reason to retreat. We can just give up this Noctowl that's in the active if need be. They play down a Morgrim, and then they Iono us, so... Our new hand isn't terrible, but... we are hoping for either a energy switch or a Noctowl off the top. Either of those would actually be a huge buff to our hand, but we top deck into another energy, then we use our Teal Mask and we just find our Ursaluna. So we will be using one of these Crispins so we can start getting energy down on our Wellspring, and then we're probably just going to Saw Block the Monkey Dory that's in the active, guaranteeing that they can't get a attack off this turn with a Grimmsnarl. So here, that's exactly what we do. We aren't playing down the Fez yet either because that's just an easy target for them, and since they already have the Frostlass, that would just be weakening it even more, and we kind of don't want to give them free access to 2 prizes like that unless we absolutely have to. So here they do get into a Grimmsnarl, so they're going to be able to get that powered up. And if you saw what was in the discard, you saw 2 Rare Candy, which they, in their list, are only running 2 Rare Candy. That may or may not come up later, and we'll talk about it when it does come up. But here, they are just going to use Monkey Dory that they attached a energy to start moving some damage around. They are just going to start putting some of the damage down onto our Wellspring so they can one-shot it with a Grimmsnarl later on. And this turn, we draw into Latias, but we are just going to use this Teal Mask again. And I was really hoping to find a Noctowl, because if we found a Noctowl, we could actually boss up their Grimmsnarl and get rid of it with our Teal Mask that has most of our grass energy on it. Here we are just going to bench down the Fez. We know that their list is running it's running 3 Iono, so we don't really want to give them free avenues into that. We are getting rid of their Frostlass as well. That way we get rid of their free damage every turn and make it a little bit harder for them to be able to one-shot our Fez. Here, though, they are going to be able to do enough damage to knock out either our Wellspring or our Teal Mask, and they do use the Arven to find the counter catchers so they can get rid of our Teal Mask. So that is really bad for us, but we can still play around it. Here, they are just moving some damage over. They're putting it on the Wellspring, and then they're throwing some more damage onto the Hoothoot that's already damaged. We are just going to throw up the Wellspring. We have a Latias in hand, and we top deck a energy switch. But first we're going to draw 3 with Fez. We draw into our Pikachu, which could be nice, but right now they're 10 damage short from being knocked out, and we don't want to give them a free 2 prizes because we would be relying on their Frostlass to be able to get the knockout. We could use this Clefairy as well to be able to do some damage. There's a couple different lines that we could really do here. We also could just throw down the Ursaluna, so that way then if they do get a knockout, then we can get the reverse knockout with the Ursaluna later as well. So here we are just going to Crispin. We're going to power up this Clefairy. We are going to get down an Owl. I'm thinking, do I want to get down Ursaluna or Pikachu? I decide I'm just going to get down or retreat into Clefairy. I still think about it, and I know that that's a good 1-2 punch that I could do. So I do bench down the Ursaluna, and I just do a bunch of damage to the Grimmsnarl. They're going to be able to get a knockout on our Clefairy because they have 10 damage to move around off of their Munkidori, or they could actually just move 30 damage from their Grimmsnarl onto it, making it a little bit harder and taking them out of Wellspring range. And that's exactly what they're going to do. So they also get a Impidimp down. That way then they can try to slowly get into another of their Grimmsnarls. Here they did Iono us, so our new hand isn't looking terrible. There's quite a few things that we can do with this hand, and one of the big things is getting down this Teal mask. We can start getting some energy down. We do still have a Super Rod left in the deck, if I remember correctly, so we could actually get energy put back into the deck for that. So here they do get the knockout on the Clefairy. We top deck into a Ultra Ball, which can get us into the Noctowl. And we do the Fez. We get a much better hand. We get the Judge, a Nest Ball. So we are just going to get rid of the Nest Ball and the Judge. And we are going to get down the Noctowl. We start looking through stuff. We could get Turo here. We see that we still have the Super Rod. So we are just going to throw down this Teal mask. We get down the Noctowl and we use it. And this turn is the big mistake that actually lost me the game. So I should have went with the first line of play. In my head, there was a total of 5 different plays that I could have done, and I couldn't figure out exactly which one to go for. And I would have known exactly which one to go for if I just clicked on their discard and looked and saw that they had 2 rare candy in there. I was so worried about them going rare candy Grimmsnarl and them just winning the game because of it, that I just completely was trying to get like a Wellspring line that just wasn't working. So I was just floundering around with all of these Noctowls trying to do so. But really, what we should have done is we should have gotten the Super Rod plus the Turo, and that would have gotten us the Grass Energy back into the deck, so that way then we could use the Earthen Vessel to be able to get enough energy on our Ogerpon next turn to be able to get a knockout that we need, or to be able to get our Wellspring powered up then, because we also had the energy switch. And then we could also get the Turo to reset our Noctowl that already has a bunch of damage, and that would have been completely fine. But because we floundered, we lost the game because of it. So overall, this tournament run with Tera Box was both incredibly fun and a good showcase of just how much I've learned so far in my Pokemon TCG playing career. I still have a ton to learn and hope that you'll continue to watch my journey as I do so. And please subscribe. I do post new videos every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday, and let me know in the comments, would you take Tera Box to your next tournament?